So you met with a wealth coach, or you met with a qualified specialist in infant banking. You went through the education process, and you're ready to sign up. Well, what are the steps you have to go through to apply and get approved for an infant banking policy? Hi, welcome to Control and Compound with Darren Mitchell. I'm your host, and joining me today is Christina Wyatt, wealth coach at Control and Compound Financial. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Darren. How you doing today?
Fantastic.
That's great. Before we get started, I just want to remind our listeners that if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and give us that 5-star rating. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, and hit the bell button so you always know when new content is coming out.
Great. Okay, Christina, we're going to talk about the process of signing up for an infinite banking policy. So for this episode, we're going to assume you've met with a wealth coach, or you've met with someone and you understand the concept, you've read the books, you've watched the webinars, you watched the videos. Now you're ready to sign up. Some people get a little intimidated going, oh, how is it to sign up? What steps do I got to go through? Am I going to get approved? So let's walk through that, Christina. Where do you want to start on the application and approval process?
Well, I think that we should really start at step one. And step one is seeing if it's an option. Because this is life insurance, it's not actually going to be for everyone, right? We can't just sign an application, send it up, set it up, and it's all done and put into place. With life insurance, we do have to do an application. And we start that process in our office by doing a no money down, no obligation life insurance application with a customer relations specialist here in our office. So first step is getting an application put in place to begin the process. That's step number one, getting that application in.
Okay, so they finish their education, they decide they want to do it, they do the application. How difficult is the application? Can you just kind of walk us through? So that customer relationships specialist will contact the individual, and then what do they have to go through then?
So how it works, thankfully, since it's come a very long way, life insurance applications have, they used to be 90-page applications sitting down in front of you on paper. Right now, and now how it works is a lot of it's done virtually. Actually, almost all of it's done virtually. So what happens is our customer relationship specialist is going to give you a call on the phone. You got to book off about 20, 30 minutes or so. And they're going to ask you some general information questions. So things like date of birth, address. We do need to verify your identity with, matching a driver's license, things like that. Very general information stuff. That application then is going to get sent to you by email to click to sign, and it's going to get sent off to the insurance company. That insurance company is going to use that application as authorization to begin their underwriting. And underwriting is gathering all of the information about you for them to determine if you're going to be approved or not for that policy. So the risk to the company for that policy is kind of what the underwriting involves. And the step after that would be completing a telephone interview with that insurance company over the phone. So they're going to have a health professional give you a call where you're going to provide all of your medical information directly to them. So this step is really the insurance company gathering all of your information, and they do it by the telephone interview. Sometimes they will request a doctor's report from your office if they're looking for additional medical information. Every now and again, they will request that a nurse come out and meet with you to provide a blood sample, urine sample. Now, this is not all the time. We've actually come a long way since COVID, which was great. COVID actually really helped us in this department. I don't know, Darren, if you wanted to kind of dive into those COVID changes that we've had.
Yeah, March 2020 was a fun time in our business. Business was going well, everything was great, and then COVID hit, and we're like, oh, so nurses can't go to your home anymore and take your blood and urine because they're not allowed in your house. So I guess we're out of business, and that was a panic for a few weeks. I got to be honest, and then one of the silver linings of COVID is all these insurance companies drastically increase the amount of coverage you can apply for without fluids. When we say fluids, we typically mean blood and urine. So as Christina mentioned, occasionally, sure, they're going to go back and ask for blood and urine if something comes up in one of those questions. But for most cases we see today, there's no blood in urine unless you get into the higher amounts or the older ages. And at that point, it's just a nurse or just a health professional asking you those medical questions. You talked about an APS or attending physician statement. Sounds intimidating. It's really quite simple. If I went for every February, I go and do my annual checkup and give blood. If I applied for insurance in March or April of that year, the insurance company is going to say, "Oh, you went to your doctor in February? Yeah, I just did blood work." They're like, "Great, we just need a copy of that report." And that copy of that report, they'll pay the doctor for that service. The doctor will receive a check and just saying, "Can you just send us a copy of that blood work?" So if we need an APS, sometimes that can slow it down a little bit. Like, could be 30 days or more sometimes before we get a decision, or even up to 6 weeks if we're waiting on that doctor's report. But if we don't have to go for a doctor's report and we don't require fluids, what's a typical approval process time?
So really, it's as quick as you want it to be, because the ball's in your court after that application's been done. They're going to reach out to you to schedule your telephone interview. So, we've seen people be very much so on the ball and have that interview done within the next couple days. And if that interview comes back and you don't have a long health history, there's nothing coming up that they kind of want to check, and you haven't recently had blood work and that kind of stuff done, everything's all good, they can come back. Takes them a few days to review for sure. So I'd say, quickest turnaround, about 2 weeks, you could get it done by getting the application done, getting the telephone interview done, and then them coming back and giving the decision. Now, no alarms rung if yours takes longer than 2 weeks. It's not 2 weeks for everyone, and it's not 2 weeks for every healthy person out there either, right? Because they could just have an extra question. They love questions. They ask us a lot of questions. They sometimes want to know the last time you stubbed your toe. So don't get concerned if yours is taking longer than 2 weeks, especially if they're going for, a routine test result from your doctor with that attending physician statement. Don't get concerned. It's sitting at the doctor's office waiting to get done. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just paperwork that's taken a little bit longer to get done and returned back to the underwriter. And they can't give us a decision until all of the information has been gathered. So they really do, they definitely dot their I's and cross their T's when they're doing this. This is their job. They do this for a living. They want to make sure that they see all of the information. So they are going to wait until they have it all in front of them, and then they are going to provide us with a decision.
Right. The decision's really step 2. So again, most cases you're not going to require a physician statement or blood in urine, and if you do, don't panic. No big deal. It's just routine stuff. Doctors see this every day. It's nothing new. Step 2 is really when they make that decision, and the decision is typically one of 3 things. Step 2, they come back and they say, yes, we will insure this person for the amount they applied for. No, we will not insure this person. Something came up in the underwriting or the medical questions that they're not a big fan of, and they're going to say, you know what, we don't think this person's a good risk. They're not going to insure that person. Or they're going to come back and say, you're rated. And a rated policy just means they're going to charge you a higher premium than they would for someone that isn't rated. Now, one of the advantages of participating whole life set up properly the way we do it is a small rating really doesn't have that big of an impact on your policy. If you're focused on the cash value, a small rating's really not going to change the cash value significantly. It will reduce your death benefit a little bit, but we can still have significant cash value to make this work. But if you have a high rating, a large rating, then that's not going to work. The extra expenses for that rating will offset the power of the growth of that cash value. So if you have a large rating, you might want to go to a plan B where you look at insuring a spouse or a family member or some other person. But that's kind of step 1 or step 2, yes, no, or rating. And let's dig into that rating and how we get the best results, Christina. So if someone knew they had a health history, I had a heart attack 4 years ago, or I had cancer, or I had this, or whatever the person had, what steps can we do to help get that best decision? Thanks for listening so far. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to please subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform, hit the like button on YouTube, and more importantly, if you find value from what you're seeing here, please reach out to us at controllingcompound.com. Now let's get back into it.
Yeah, so typically when we're talking, we're talking about this process and doing the providing the medical information. If someone does have a health concern or a health history, they're going to let us know. Which is the first thing you want to do. First thing is let your, let your advisor, your wealth coach know that you have a health history and you're a bit concerned about what's going to come up in the application process. By providing those details, what we can do is we can go out to the specialists at the specialists at the insurance companies that we can reach out to, actually even preliminary before we put in the applications, and kind of give them an idea of the health history and what that might look like. By doing this, we can go to we work with 4 different companies, so we can go to the 4 different companies and see what what they would say about this particular health condition, because sometimes it's going to be different. Some might look at it a little bit differently. So that's one of the first things that we're going to do. The other thing that we can do is we have underwriting specialists that we work with that will come work with us to put together the best case for you. So, when you're giving that information over the phone, it's just answering questions, yes and no, and kind of black and white stuff. And health can be a lot more than that, right? Like there's a lot more. And for someone that knows the ins and outs of the underwriting, what they're looking for, they can put together a case for you where they're talking to you, getting your information, getting the doctor's information, and really providing a full picture on why you shouldn't, why that rating shouldn't be there or why that approval should happen. And that can really help us out through the application processes using these specialists to get involved.
Yeah, so we have insurance company specialists. We also have an underwriting consultant that we have on retainer that we provide to our clients at no additional fee. So if you're concerned about something, we've actually arranged phone calls with an underwriting consultant to say, okay, before we apply for this application, let's just have a conversation with an underwriting consultant that knows everything, was an ex-underwriter, and says, yes, I think you're going to have a small rating. You know what? It's not worth applying for, or no, I can get you standard. And the other thing is we want to get that specialist involved as soon as possible if we know there's something going on, so we can set it up. But even sometimes after the case, we can get the underwriting consultant involved. We had one a couple of years ago. The insurance company, I won't name it, they wanted to postpone the application until that person completed their upcoming surgery. Well, they were waiting for a knee, and we couldn't understand why they would not make a decision just on a knee transplant. So we talked to the underwriting consultant. He actually talked to the head underwriter at one of the insurance companies. They said, no, that we wouldn't rate that. So we literally had the case technically approved by the time the new application arrived at the new insurance company, because we had that file reviewed from the underwriting consultant, talked to the insurance company. They said, yes, we think it would be a favorable decision. We applied and we got that approved probably in a week. So again, there's options there. Just make sure you're dealing with somebody that has those resources to help you get the best decision. So that's step 2. What's step 3, Christina?
Well, step 3 is making it real. Finalizing the policy, making that first deposit, putting the policy in place. In our lingo, we call it in force, right? So making that policy in force and active. And this is when it becomes real. This is when your life insurance coverage actually comes into play. And this is when your cash value starts growing.
Great. Okay. So you cut a check. Once it's approved, you sign off. There's been no change in health. Now the policy's in place. Now it's a unilateral contract. They cannot change it. If your health changes, it doesn't affect your policy. If you develop cancer, heart attack, stroke, whatever, it doesn't affect your policy. You're the only one that can change your policy, not the insurance company. So let's dig into that a little more, Christina. When you cut that check, what's your risk from the time you get approved until you actually cut that check and sign all the documents?
So the approval is not forever. It's based on your health right now. So you want to make sure that you finalize that policy, you get the cut check, you sign your documents, and you give the check to to finalize it as soon as possible. The thing is when you're signing those documents, what you're signing off on is that your health hasn't changed since doing the application. So if you did have to go see a doctor, if you did end up in the emergency room for something while that application process was taking place, we actually have to go back and get you reapproved again. Not saying that we can't do it, but if your health were to change substantially in that period of time, you may not be approved for the policy any longer. So it's very important that you know that it's not actually in place until the documents are signed and that the deposit has been made. That's when it's real, that's when it's in place, and your approval is only as good until your health changes. So the moment your health changes, your approval is no longer an approval. So you want to make sure you get it done before that may happen.
Right. And that's worst case scenario, but we're in the insurance business. We get a plan for worst case scenarios. So you apply, you get approved, and you go, let me think about it. Yeah, I got to talk to some people, and you think about it, and you hum and haw, and all of a sudden it's weeks or months pass. And now something changes in your health. You have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, etc. Now that insurance policy is no longer approved because you can't sign that form saying there's been no change in my health since I answered those medical questions. So real important, you do run that risk until you actually cut that check. The policy's not in force or not real. Now, we talked briefly about a rating and stuff, but Christina, I just want to mention too, what are the other options if someone does get rated, that maybe there's some other way we can get them coverage on that person?
So coverage on that person, one big way to do it, and we've talked about it in other podcasts when owning your own term insurance, is something that we call a conversion. So if you have term insurance with one of the insurance companies that provides the type of policy that we need to be using for our infinite banking strategy, we can convert it. And what that means is we can switch the term insurance into the participating whole life insurance with no medical questions asked. So you have locked in your insurability at the time you've taken out that term. I'm not going to ask you those questions again, which can be huge if your health has changed. This is the only way that you're going to be able to get this policy without answering those medical questions.
Right. So that's great. So you have a term insurance contract, and you couldn't qualify for a whole life policy, but you could actually take that term, and let's say the term was $500,000, and we need $200,000 of death benefit in order to make that whole life work. Well, we could take $200,000, make the whole life plan that you want, and then keep your $300,000 of term, the difference between the 500 minus the 200. So you have that conversion option. So we mentioned, that risk of once you're approved, if you wait weeks or months to actually cut that first check. Again, term insurance would solve that problem too. Let's take the term for now, and then when we make the final decision, we can convert it. Doesn't happen very often, but again, if you have existing term insurance, the importance of having it with the proper company, because you can only convert to a participating whole life if you're with a company that offers participating whole life. So if you have term with another carrier that doesn't offer a whole life or participating whole life, you can convert to what they have, but they don't have what we're looking for, in this case, an infinite banking policy. Okay, so that's how you apply and get approved for an infinite banking policy. Please reach out to us if you have more questions. Any ideas for podcast episodes, please reach out. Love to hear feedback. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. And if you want more information, check out our website, controllandcompound.com, and you can sign up for an education session with one of our wealth coaches.